What if I told you that the prayer you whispered this morning, half asleep, barely thinking, maybe even doubting it would reach anywhere, God heard every single word, and not just heard. He's already working on the answer, right now, at this exact moment. You didn't stumble onto this video by accident. Something pulled you here. Maybe it was that heaviness in your chest when you opened your eyes today. That quiet ache you can't quite name. I know it's there. I know because I've carried that same ache. You're holding something, aren't you? A worry that wakes you at 3 a.m., a situation that looks impossible, a prayer that felt like it hit the ceiling and fell right back down. Here's what nobody tells you. God isn't silent. He's never been silent. You just haven't learned to recognize His answer yet. And that changes today. Stay with me, because what comes next might shift something inside you that's been stuck for a very long time. Let me tell you something that might shake you a little. That silence you've been interpreting as God ignoring you? That's not silence. That's God preparing the room. Think about it this way. When someone you love is coming to visit, someone you haven't seen in years, you don't just throw the door open and say, "Come on in." You clean. You rearrange. You set things in order. You prepare the table. And while you're doing all of that, from the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. The house is quiet, the lights are dim, but inside, everything is in motion. That's exactly what God is doing right now, with whatever you brought to Him this morning. I know this is hard to hear because we live in a world that demands instant answers. You send a text, you expect a reply in 30 seconds. You order coffee, it's ready before you finish paying. Everything is instant except God. And that frustrates you, doesn't it? Especially at this stage of life. You've already waited long enough. You've already been patient enough. You've watched people around you get answers, get breakthroughs, get their miracle, and you're still standing in the same spot, praying the same prayer, wondering if the line got disconnected. But here's what I want you to hold on to today. God's delay is never God's denial. Let me say that again because you need to feel it in your bones. God's delay is never God's denial. That pause you're experiencing, it's not rejection, it's preparation. Something is being arranged behind the scenes of your life that you cannot see right now. And when it manifests, you'll understand why it took the times it took. You've lived enough years to know this is true. Think back to the moments in your life when you thought everything was falling apart. The job loss, the diagnosis, the relationship that crumbled, the season of loneliness that felt like it would never end. At the time, it felt like God had walked away. But looking back now, you can trace His fingerprints through every single one of those seasons. He was working. He was rearranging. He was building something you couldn't see because you were standing too close to it. It's like standing in front of a mosaic. Up close, all you see are broken pieces, jagged edges, mismatched colors, fragments that don't seem to belong together. But step back, and suddenly the pieces form a picture so beautiful it takes your breath away. That's what God is doing with your life right now. He's not breaking you. He's building a mosaic, and the pieces that hurt the most are often the ones He uses to create the most stunning parts of the image. You know what I've noticed about people our age? We carry this unspoken fear that maybe we've run out of time, that if God was going to answer, He would have done it by now, that the window has closed, that the best chapters are behind us and we're just filling pages until the end. I want to look you in the eye right now and tell you, that is a lie. God is not finished with you. He is not finished with your story. The prayers you prayed 20 years ago and gave up on, some of those are about to be answered in ways you never imagined. The dreams you buried because nobody encouraged you to keep them alive, God kept the soil watered. He's been growing something underground this whole time, and the season of seeing it break through the surface is closer than you think. The psalmist understood this. David, the man who was anointed king as a teenager and then spent years hiding in caves, running for his life, waiting for a promise that looked like it would never come true. David wrote these words, "I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God." Psalm 40, verses 1 to 3. Read that carefully. David didn't say God answered instantly. He said, "I waited patiently." And the Hebrew word for patiently here carries a meaning of stretching out, of enduring, of holding your ground when everything in you wants to give up. David held his ground, and God showed up. He will show up for you too. I want to take you somewhere most people never go with prayer. Most of us were taught that prayer is about asking. We bring our list. Heal this. Fix that. Open this door. Close that one. And we hand it to God like a cosmic to-do list. And there's nothing wrong with that. Jesus himself said, "Ask and you shall receive." But somewhere along the way, we reduced prayer to a transaction, a request, an application we submit, and then sit around waiting for approval. But what if prayer was never meant to be the moment where you change God's mind? What if prayer was the moment where God changes yours? That's a hard shift, I know. Especially when you're hurting, especially when the need is real and urgent, and you don't have the luxury of philosophical distance. When the doctor says, "We need to talk about options," you don't want a theology lesson. You want a miracle. And honestly, God is not offended by that. He's never offended by your rawness. The Psalms prove that. David screamed, complained, questioned, even accused God of abandoning him. And God called him a man after his own heart. Not because David was polite, because David was honest. Here's what I'm discovering, and I think you're discovering it too at this point in your life. The deepest prayers aren't the ones where you tell God what to do. They're the ones where you finally stop talking long enough to hear what he's been trying to tell you. There's a beautiful passage in 1 Kings 19 about the prophet Elijah. He was exhausted, burned out, done. He ran into the wilderness, collapsed under a tree, and begged God to just let him die. Then God told him to stand on the mountain because he was about to pass by. And then came a mighty wind, so powerful it shattered rocks. But God wasn't in the wind. Then an earthquake, but God wasn't in the earthquake. Then a fire, but God wasn't in the fire. And after the fire, a gentle whisper, a still, small voice. And that's where God was. Do you see it? God showed up, but not where Elijah expected him. Not in the dramatic, the loud, the powerful, in the whisper, in the gentle breath that you almost miss if you're not paying attention. How many times has God spoken to you in a whisper, and you missed it because you were waiting for the earthquake? I'll tell you what happens to a lot of us in this season of life. We've been through the wind. We've survived the earthquake. We've walked through the fire, and we're still standing. Bruised maybe, tired, absolutely, but standing. And now God is saying, I need you to get quiet enough to hear me in the whisper. That morning prayer you whispered today, it wasn't small. It was actually the most powerful thing you did all day. Because when you pray, you're not just sending words into the void. You're positioning yourself. You're turning your face toward the one who made you. You're saying, I'm available, I'm listening, I'm here. And that posture, that willingness to show up even when you don't have all the answers, that's the prayer that changes everything. Because here's the secret hidden in plain sight. The answer you're looking for isn't always a change in circumstances. Sometimes it's a change in you. And that change begins the moment you stop performing your prayer and start living it. There comes a morning, and maybe it's this morning, when you wake up and realize something has shifted inside you. Not overnight, not in some dramatic lightning bolt moment, but slowly, the way seasons change. You can't point to the exact hour it happened, but you know something is different. The anxiety is still there, but it doesn't own the room anymore. The problem hasn't disappeared, but it no longer has the final word. That shift has a name. It's called surrender. And I know that word makes people uncomfortable. In our culture, surrender sounds like giving up. It sounds like weakness. It sounds like waving a white flag and letting life walk all over you. But that's not what spiritual surrender is. Not even close. Surrender is the moment you stop trying to be God in your own life and let God be God. Think about it. How many years have you been carrying the weight of outcomes you were never designed to control? How many sleepless nights have you spent trying to engineer a solution to something that was never yours to fix? How many times have you rehearsed conversations, planned for every possible scenario, built contingencies on top of contingencies, all because somewhere deep down, you believed that if you didn't hold it all together, everything would fall apart? And here's the painful truth. It fell apart anyway, didn't it? The thing you were terrified would happen. It happened. And you're still here, still breathing, still standing. Which means either you're far stronger than you realize, or someone was holding you together when you couldn't hold yourself. Both are true, but the second one is the one that will set you free. There's a verse in Psalm 46 that most people have heard at least once. It says, "Be still and know that I am God." But the Hebrew behind "be still" doesn't mean relax. It doesn't mean take a deep breath and calm down. The original word is Rapha, and it literally means to let go, to drop your weapons, to unclench your hands, to release the grip. God wasn't saying calm down. He was saying, let go, I've got this. Now, letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you stop showing up, stop trying, stop being responsible. It means you stop trying to control what only God can control. You do your part, and you trust Him with the rest. You plant the seed, you water it, but you let God give the increase. And you stop standing over the soil every morning demanding to know why it hasn't grown yet. This is where so many of us have been stuck, in that terrible space between planting and harvest. We've done the work, we've prayed the prayers, we've made the changes, and now we're waiting, and the waiting feels like a desert, and the silence feels like abandonment. But I want to share something with you that I believe with everything in me. The desert is not a punishment. The desert is a classroom. God brought the Israelites through the wilderness, not because He was angry with them, but because there were things they needed to learn in the desert that they could never learn in the promised land. The desert strips you. It removes every false identity, every crutch, everything you were leaning on that wasn't God. And in that emptiness, in that raw, exposed, nothing left but Him place, you finally meet Him in a way you never could when life was comfortable. Some of you watching this right now are in the desert, and you've been telling yourself it's because you did something wrong, that God is punishing you, that you missed a turn somewhere, and now you're wandering in circles. Can I tell you something? God doesn't waste desserts. Every single day you've spent in that wilderness has been shaping you into the person who can carry the promise when it arrives. The version of you that walked into the desert is not the version of you that's walking out. You've been refined. You've been deepened. You've been softened in places that used to be hard. And that softness? That's not weakness. That's the exact quality God needs in you to trust you with what He's about to pour out. The morning prayer you whispered today, it was a surrender. Maybe you didn't frame it that way. Maybe it was just, God, help me. But that's what surrender sounds like when it's honest. It's not flowery. It's not polished. It's raw. And God hears it the same way a father hears his child cry out in the night. He doesn't evaluate the grammar. He moves toward the voice. Let me tell you about something that happened to me a few years ago. I was going through what I can only describe as the darkest season of my life. Everything I had built felt like it was cracking. The people I thought would walk with me through the fire. Some of them didn't even make it to the smoke. And one morning, I sat on the edge of my bed before the sun came up, and I said 5 words. Just 5. God, I don't know how. That was it. That was my prayer. No eloquence, no scripture, no structure. Just 5 broken words from a broken man who had nothing left to bring. And here's what I want you to understand. That prayer was enough, not because of the words, because of who those words were aimed at. A God who doesn't measure your prayer by its polish. He measures it by its honesty. You see, somewhere along the way, we picked up this idea that prayer has to be clean, that it has to sound right, that you need to kneel properly. Close your eyes, fold your hands, find the right posture, use the right words, and only then will God tune in. But that's not what Scripture shows us. Scripture shows us a God who meets people in the mess, in the dirt, in the desperation. Hagar in the wilderness, alone and terrified. God found her, the woman at the well carrying shame she couldn't even name. He sat down next to her, Peter sinking in the water, drowning in his own failure. Jesus grabbed his hand. Every single one of those moments started with someone who was not okay, and every single one ended with God showing up. So let me ask you, what's your 5-word prayer this morning? What's the raw, unfiltered cry that you haven't said out loud because you thought it wasn't holy enough? Say it, right now, wherever you are. Nobody has to hear it but Him, and listen. If you've made it this far into this video with me, I want you to know something. You're not just watching a video. You're sitting in a room with someone who understands. Because I know what it is to wake up and have to choose faith over feeling. I know what it is to pray when the answer feels nowhere in sight. And the fact that you're still here, still listening, still seeking, still showing up, that tells me something about you. That tells me your heart hasn't given up. It's tired, maybe. It's bruised, probably. But it's not done. If that resonates with you, do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel and come walk with us every single day. Not because we have all the answers, but because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is surround yourself with people who are also pressing in, also believing, also refusing to let go of a God who refuses to let go of them. And if this spoke to you today, share it with 5 people. 5 people who need to hear that God is listening. 5 people who woke up this morning needing exactly what you needed when you clicked on this video. You don't know who they are, but God does. And He may have brought you here so you could be the bridge. Now, let me pull you back, because I promised you something and I intend to deliver it. I told you that God is listening. I told you the silence isn't silence. But here's the part that will rearrange everything you thought you knew about how God answers. Sometimes God's answer isn't a change in your situation. Sometimes His answer is a change in your strength. Paul understood this better than anyone. He had what he called a thorn in the flesh, something he begged God to remove. 3 times he pleaded, and God's answer, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." God didn't remove the thorn. He didn't change the situation. He changed Paul. He gave him the strength to carry what he couldn't fix. And that answer, that unexpected, frustrating, beautiful answer, was enough. So here we are. You clicked on this video this morning carrying something. Maybe you didn't even know what it was. Just a heaviness, a question, a quiet ache that lives in the space between waking and getting out of bed. And I told you something at the very beginning that might have sounded bold. I said God is listening, that He heard every word, that the silence you've been living in isn't silence at all. Now look at where we've been together. We walked through the truth that God's delay is never God's denial, that He's been preparing the room, arranging the mosaic, fitting pieces together that you couldn't see because you were standing too close. We discovered that prayer isn't about changing God's mind. It's about God changing yours. That He speaks in whispers, and the reason you missed His voice wasn't because He was quiet, but because you were waiting for an earthquake. We sat in the desert and realized it wasn't punishment, it was preparation. We learned that surrender isn't weakness. It's the moment you stop trying to be God and let God be God. And we heard Paul's story, the man who begged for relief and received something better, strength to carry what couldn't be removed. All of that brings us here, to this morning, to your morning. And here's what I want you to understand as we close. The transformation you've been praying for, it may have already begun, not in your circumstances, in you. You came here looking for an answer, and maybe the answer is that you've been changed in the asking. Your heart is softer now than it was when you pressed play. Your hands are a little more open. Your grip has loosened, and that is the miracle you didn't think to pray for. God didn't bring you to this video by accident. He brought you here the same way He brings you to everything that matters, quietly, gently, through a series of choices that felt like yours, but were always being guided by a hand you couldn't see. David wrote these words in Psalm 5, and I want you to hear them as if they were written for you this morning. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my sighing. Listen to my cry for help, my King and my God. For to you I pray. In the morning, O Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning, I lay my requests before you and wait in expectation. Read that last line again. In the morning, you hear my voice. Not maybe, not sometimes. You hear. And then, wait in expectation. Not in despair, not in doubt, in expectation. Because you now know something you didn't know when you woke up. You know that the silence was never silence. You know that the delay was never denial. You know that the God who let you sit in the desert was the same God who was building something in the desert that you couldn't have received any other way. So tomorrow morning, when you wake up and that familiar ache tries to settle in, remember this. Remember that your 5 words are enough. Remember that the whisper is louder than the earthquake. Remember that the mosaic is being formed. And remember that the God who heard David in the morning, who heard Elijah in the whisper, who heard Paul in his weakness, that same God heard you this morning, and He's still listening right now. As these words land, as you sit there with whatever you're carrying, He's listening. If this video touched something in you, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to this channel and walk with us every single day. Not because we're perfect, because we're pressing in, just like you. Share this with 5 people. 5 people who need to know that God is listening. You might be the only voice that reaches them today. And leave a comment below. Something honest, something real. Tell me what this stirred in you. And tell me, what should we talk about next? What's the prayer you need spoken over your life? I'm listening, and so is He. Good morning, God is listening, and so are we.